Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Focus on Gaming podcast, episode number 54. Hello, chaps. How are we both?
Hello.
Very well. How are you?
Very good.
Good. We've all had a good week since our last episode with, did somebody say retro, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was fantastic to talk to.
He was
very
really
interesting
episode. Yeah,
I'd love to be able to just sit there while he's building and go, so what are you doing now? What's that wire do? What's this do? What's this board do?
And I've been thinking since that episode, because he said he couldn't tell us about his new project, but he just said it's made out of pine. And I was thinking pine rhymes with time, and he makes retro. The pine machine, like the time machine, the pine capsule.
The pine machine.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Oh, well, Sean, if you're listening, there you go.
Yeah.
Martin hasn't copyrighted that.
Pine capsule, back in pine. You know, there's so many you can do with that. Haven't you?
You've just been going through puns of pine.
They've been in your head the whole week.
Yeah, it was literally after the episode. I was like, yeah, I wish I would have thought of that 10 minutes ago.
Well, he's updated his although he's updated his wide boy since then. He's decorated it after saying that he loves the pine and how it looks, and he covered it up with some fantastic artwork. Don't get me wrong; it's very sort of retro neon style. He covered up the pine. So I think this obviously the wide boy is possibly not for him. I don't know. I can't remember if we asked him that. But yeah, if it's for NQ64, then obviously their aesthetic is neon and all that kind of artwork. Yeah. So it would be more in line. But
great episode. That was the main thing. So
yeah, fantastic episode. Yeah. Episode 53. If anyone's listening, doesn't know.
This episode we got something planned for this episode. No special guest.
Well, this episode is definitely going to have the explicit language ticked, I think.
Definitely not suitable for children.
Yeah, if you're listening to this in a car and you've got children there.
Yeah, don't. Because, what is it? What are we doing? Come on, Martin, just say.
Whose idea was it? Who came?
Tom.
No.
Yeah.
It's sexy time. Well, how Tom put it was a can we do sex and gaming? Like, yeah, you have to take me out to dinner first. So yeah, sex and gaming. I don't think it necessarily has to be sex. I think there's sex and sexy stuff, and also the not so sexy stuff. Because there are some really dodgy things. I really hope my wife doesn't look at my search history for the last little while,
or your internet provider, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I've been researching this for about 12 years, so I hope my wife doesn't look at my last 12 years worth of. How old am I? Actually, 46. So 34 years of internet history. Let's start at the beginning. I mean, one of the first sex games that I found when researching this was an Atari 2600 game, and I have heard of it before. It's called Custer's Revenge.
Ironically, on the Woody of all things.
And it's basically obviously it's Atari 2600, and it was a naked cowboy just with a hat on, with a cock that basically bounces up and down as he walks along, trying to get to a tied up Native American woman with rather large bosoms, tied to a pole. And when he avoids all the arrows that are coming down and gets to her, he has sex with said tied up Native American woman. So it wasn't exactly the best start for sex games. That was 1982.
You have to avoid the arrows to get to the woman to have sex.
Yeah.
On a Woody.
On a Woody. While she's tied to a woody pole.
Amazing.
Obviously by nowadays standards, it's completely tasteless. And not great. But even in 1982, apparently it caused a bit of a stir because it was one of the first, I suppose, big. And it's not sexy. It's not sexy at all. In fact, even back then, it probably would have been funny because it just, yeah. In fact, though, the boobs are, if you look it up, the boobs are less pointy than Lara Cross in 96 when the first game came out.
I wonder if there was some kind of bedroom coder who was like 14 years old and thought, I know, let's have a floppy willy man chasing,
It's got fantastically, it's terrible for nowadays standards, but it's got great artwork that's just awful as well.
Do we think Woolworths stopped it? I wonder.
Just obviously don't search for that if you are at work. It's not safe for work if you search for Custer's Revenge on the Atari. In fact, pretty much everything that we talk about today, don't search for it on your work computer, Martin.
It's hard for me.
If you hopefully, have you got a browser on your phone? But no, it's
borrow my daughter's tablet.
Can we establish your daughter should not see that history? Please delete your history after.
What I like about this game is that the extra lives that are at the bottom also look like penises as well.
And I watched a video and it was sped up basically because it was on an emulator that somebody was doing it, and of course the cock was sort of bouncing up and down. I'm just like, ow, that just looks like it was almost taking off because it was flapping up and down so much. But
reckon they'll do a remastered version of it?
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that gets past the watchful eyes of the internet nowadays, but still, I don't think the watchful eyes of the internet would allow that.
Looks like she's got a dildo on her head. Is that meant to be a feather?
I think it's meant to be a feather, yeah.
Either that or butt beads, one or the other.
I mean, it's just, yeah.
But did they have those in 1982? I don't know.
What, butt beads?
Dildos or butt beads.
Have you seen the picture, Martin?
God, there's been dildos for hundreds of years, probably thousands, just made out of different. Nowadays, the materials are different. That's all.
History of dildo.
Just sent you the link, Martin. So have a little shufty at these perky boobs.
Don't look on your work computer. No. So obviously you're not you're doing this podcast on your work computer because that would be against your work terms. Anyway, so yeah, the other one. Who here has played an early strip poker game?
What, the Sam?
Well, like the ones that were on the Spectrum. There was probably one on the Atari, that kind of thing. But yeah, Martin, have you ever had an 8-bit pair of tits on your screen?
Unfortunately, not.
No,
it wasn't a live game, was you? But you'd be too young for gaming of that type back then.
Yeah, I mean,
I was too young for that kind of gaming in 1980s.
Well, I remember playing the Sam Fox one, and I remember playing the Page 3 Sun game, where you could slowly reveal the Page 3 boob model.
That was for those that don't know, the Sun is a national rag, a newspaper in this country that used to have a Page 3 every day, and they were basically a topless woman, and that was it. And it was about I want to say about 10 years ago they decided to get. Or was it less than that?
They had a little box, didn't they, where they tell you about the woman, and, like,
and she'd always want world peace or have an opinion.
Train as a doctor, and like,
yeah.
I was like, I'm not reading. Wow, I'm not here to read about.
Yeah, they had a vote. I think they had a vote many years ago about whether they were going to allow fake boobs, and then eventually, I want to say somewhere between 5 and 10 years ago, they just went. I think they had a vote and said, "Shall we carry on Page 3?" And I think the vote overwhelmingly went, "Nah."
That was the only time that female readers actually read The Sun, because they voted no, and all the men went, "Oh, what?"
Yeah, all of them to their partners were like, "Oh yes, it's terrible, but behind
and everybody in Liverpool went, just get rid of the sun. That's fine. I mean, to be honest, half of the country probably went, yeah, just don't bother with the sun. It's fine. It's a Rupert Murdoch paper. That's so. I think
I haven't read a Sun since they stopped doing that. So
it was the downfall of society at that point, wasn't it, Martin? In fact, we'd have less knife crime now if it wasn't for that.
So yeah, there was a page 3 specific strip poker game, was there?
No, I did not know that.
Was that on like things like Spectrum and Commodore 64? Obviously, the Commodore 64 would have been more realistic because you had a lot more colours on the screen, didn't you? As opposed to the, I think Spectrum's 8 on screen at one point.
Something like that, yeah.
So you'd get on the Spectrum, you get a strip poker game, and the woman would be yellow or bright pink. And it was always women. Obviously, there was nothing for the those that liked men. They did have a page 7, I want to say, sometimes, I think, which was basically a man, not bottomless, just topless. I think that, you used to have sort of muscly men and equally funny little comments in boxes saying, yes, Dave here doesn't like the current election results. Well, useless. But the strip poker game, again, they were terrible. The quality wasn't there, so let's face it, it was there for sexual arousal. There was no arousal there. You were just like, boobs. And that was it.
Bit like catalogues in the 80s and 90s, wasn't it?
Oh God, yeah. No, I didn't look at anything like that.
No, of course you didn't.
No, there was the Freeman's catalogue, the Littlewood's catalogue. Martin, do you have any idea what we're talking about, Martin?
Well, I've seen catalogues with women's underwears on it. Is that what you're...
Basically, yeah. There was no internet.
So
when you
Mum
were a
used to always
teenage
get the Burlington catalogue. She'd be like, "Go and choose your Christmas present so I can tell Santa, yes, Mum."
I just need an extra 10 minutes, Mum.
Oh dear.
I'm looking at the games, I promise.
What have you got on this? What have you got on this catalogue? I can't seem to turn the pages.
Always the woman's underwear section.
I really, really like the Game Boy, Mum.
The buttons are great.
I'm going to need an extra night with this catalogue. All right.
Have you got an extra copy, Mum? I mean, they used to send them for free, didn't they? So you used to have to phone them up, didn't you, and say, "Could you send me a catalogue, please?" And they go, "Yep, no problem."
Again, another one.
Excuse me,
what are you doing with the catalogue?
You seem to have 6 copies of our catalogue.
I've got to replace my mum's catalogue for the 6th time this week.
How old are you?
Hello. I mean, hello.
Can I have one of your catalogues, please?
That was.
So those were the days.
The 80s were an interesting time if you were a young. Well, I want to say a teenager, but I wasn't a teenager till 1991. So, sort of, yeah.
Me either.
Let's say 11-year-old, 89. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't get anything except for strip poker and poorly pixelated cowboys trying to have sex with Native Americans. So it certainly wasn't the time. The only way you could get yourself off is if you knew somebody who had a poorly copied VHS. So games was not the way if you wanted to.
There was always someone, wasn't there, on the estate that did pirate videos.
Yeah, I'll let you read anything you like. Yeah,
he was always called Brian.
So then we got to the 90s. Now, 90s personally for me, obviously, well, actually late 80s and early 90s. It still wasn't sexy at all, though. Leisure Suit Larry. Has everybody played a Leisure Suit Larry game?
I haven't, no, but I know about them.
They're point-and-click games, or they started off as a text-based, so you typed in what you wanted to do. And let's say this, they programmed in a lot of dodgy things, so you could. I mean, one thing that you could do was have sex with such and such. So you have a noun in there, so you could have sex with this, sex with that, sex with this, and you could catch STDs. You could basically sexually assault people, and it's another one that hasn't really translated well to modern sensibilities.
I don't know why.
yeah, it was funny at the time. I remember playing it at my friend's house, but again, not sexy. Very low pixel count games, and it was a point-and-click game. If you could get to the end, great, but unlikely you could. I do remember there was one way how you could go through most of the game, and then you'd die later. I think if you did one mistake at the beginning, might have been having sex with the prostitute.
So like premature ejaculation.
Well, there was one. I think you have to have sex with somebody, but if you don't put a condom on first, you get an STD and die.
Amazing.
As you do. I mean, at least it had a lesson in there.
Yeah. Obviously, you had a lot of FMV games around that time as well. So from the Mega CD to the CDI, 3DO,
and the PC as well. The PC had some.
Yeah, you had Joyous Sex, Voyeur.
I mean, Night Trap was obviously the big one, which was probably the least deserved, really. I think Night Trap. Night Trap was just terrible. I only learned actually. I've got a 25th anniversary of Night Trap on my Vita at the moment, and I've only just worked out, because I had to look it up, how to play it. I've never worked out how to play it. You have to. There's a like a red light or something, and you have to listen to when the color is talked about by the people who are in the game, like the family who live there, and then you have to activate the traps with the color code. Oh my god! But anyway, that was one that was brought up. It wasn't for violence, because there wasn't really any violence, but it was more about the fact that it was all giggly girls in skimpy hot pants. But that was about as sexy as it got. It was terrible. It was terrible. Again, let's face it, if you want to get your rocks off, Night Trap was not the way to do it.
We were still reliant on catalogs, even going into the mid-90s, wasn't it?
Harold, what year were you born, Martin?
89. So yeah, I mean,
you weren't on catalogs, really.
I
you were just on breast milk. So
I mean, the thing is, we'll go for the whole thing now. Has anybody here actually? Have you ever actually found something sexy?
What, in a game?
In a game, in a video game. Have you ever thought, "Ooh, that's stirring something down there"? I don't want to know if you've been bashing one off to Lara Croft's pointy boobs, but
you asked, Duncan. What do you want to know?
I just want to know. I just want to, yeah, but I don't want to know the specifics.
Yeah, no, for me,
I don't want to know. Yes,
there'd be games where there'd be attractive people in it. Compute, but I've never sat on a game thinking I'm getting aroused here by this individual, because I'm playing the game. I'm more interested in the actual but because I haven't really played a game for that reason. I'll play a game because I want to play the game. I'm not playing it because I'm like, oh, there's some Banksy boobs in it, so I'll play the game.
So you only ever played what was that game called? The Guy game on the PS2. I think it was like 2004, and the game got banned. So all those people that played it were like, I only played it for the game, not for the topless women in it.
I don't know that one.
You don't. Well, it got banned because one of the girls that revealed her boobs in the game was actually 17 at the time. So obviously
got withdrawn.
So basically, it was a trivia game.
I guess it was like real.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean that's been an issue throughout the years of basically what is acceptable as a video game virtual, and there's been all sorts. Obviously, we go from inappropriate, like the Custer's Revenge, to inadvertent. I want to say guy game. It was there from what you described. It was there to titillate, but it was inadvertently illegal. It wasn't purposely illegal.
Wasn't there some nude scenes in Heavy Rain?
Heavy Rain, yeah. I mean, you could. There was, I believe, there's a sex scene where you can control what the characters are doing. But I mean, that game is such a dark theme. Again, it isn't. It's almost a bit weird that you've got to control them in that sex scene. It's because you're in a game about murder and torture and investigating, and it's like, ooh, it's a bit weird. Yeah. I mean, there's been ones where you're like, I don't know why that they're trying to make this sexy.
There was the basketball, the volleyball one on the Dreamcast. What was that one?
Dead or Alive?
Dead or Alive.
Dead or Alive. I mean, Dead or Alive is notorious for being quite Japanese. I mean, let's face it, a lot of inappropriate stuff is from Japan. Don't get me wrong, there's been plenty of inappropriate stuff from lots of places, but even now there's, or even just Japanese style. You got hentai, and if you go on Steam, there's thousands upon thousands of these interactive novels where they're basically these young-looking, cartoonish, big eyes wearing schoolgirl outfits, where you have to romance them to get them into all sorts of undress. And yeah, I mean, again, are you really going to get titillated by that?
Well, I've just found
look at porn.
Well, yeah, I've just found a game called Custom Order Made 3D2. So essentially, it's a Japanese game, and you would create your own ideal girl within the game, and it's a balance between porn and gameplay and a management sim. And you would play the owner of a high class brothel, and you must get the establishment out of debt, and you have to hire the girls, customize the maids who entertain clients, but also develop sexual relationships with them as it affects your stats, fetishes, and performance abilities. So yeah, that's on Steam. It's £40 on Steam.
Like a football manager game, but you're managing a brothel. That sounds
yeah.
I think if you go onto Steam and do the adult-only content or hentai, that kind of thing, it's probably the most numerous in terms of games of everything. There's I think we looked it up before. There's something like 70,000 games on Steam, and I'm pulling this number out of my ass, but I can imagine it's probably at least a third of those games are probably adult only or hentai or interactive novels where people are good looking, kind of, or that, where it's meant to elicit some kind of saucy reaction from you. There's so many.
Rack 2. It's a game called Rack 2. You're a scientist, and it describes itself as you're a scientist who must fuck everything.
If you've got a kink, Steam is the way to go. Definitely. If you're a scientist who wants to fuck everything, if you are, I don't know, any kind of work, really. If you're a bus driver, there's probably a bus driver sex sim on there somewhere. It really is. There is a game or a porn thing for everybody.
Can I just read this line to you because I think it's hilarious. So, each encounter comes with loads of information on your partner's unique kinks. You must ask them about them, all feeding into meters that track whether you're feeling friendly, angry, submissive, or dominant. Each sexual act also affects your partner's anticipation, stimulation, arousal meters. You must balance all of these out for a successful session. I mean, I can just imagine some developer sitting there going, "Oh, someone will love this shit."
Well, yeah. I searched for it. I just typed in bus and sex, and there is literally a game called Come on Bus.
Oh, what?
It's basically like a doll thing where you position a woman and then have sex with said woman on a bus.
Wow.
There you go. I mean, so that's just something that came out of my mind. And okay, oh god, I shouldn't be. Oh, we're going to be saying so many inappropriate things. But yeah,
for our gay listeners, there's another one coming out on top. The image is two men swimming naked by the looks of it. The cream of the cock of male gay dating sims. Coming out on top is bursting with personality and really, really hot dudes playing as good-looking senior undergrads from the University of Oregon. Choose your own sexcapade. Lets you have a variety of relationships with a spectrum of types of men. And it says there's barely any sex in it, which is weird. Basically, all the gay daddies I know consider sex and physical intimacy to be a very important part of their lives. Coming out on top is a very similar, silly, wholesome, romantic comedy approach, which invests deeply in varied, complicated sexual scenarios. Wow, off to Steam.
I mean, that's something that's obviously changed. You know, ever since Custer's Revenge and whatnot. I mean, even if I think it's about 10 years old. Have you heard of a game called House Party?
Yeah.
That was hilarious. I mean, it is actually quite a funny. It's a comedy game, but where literally you're at a house party. You have to find out things about people so that you can get items and help them and have sex with them. But then you can flop your dick out at any time, and yeah, start jacking off in front of anybody. But yeah, I mean, even that is about 10 years old, and even since then, I think you're gay and representation has improved because now it's not all about sex, is it? It's you get a lot of these interactive novels that are 30 years ago, even though there's no actual sexual content in them, would have been like, oh, we can't have that.
You get Microsoft points for playing those.
For playing?
Like some of these fetish games. I mean, you could earn points.
I don't think any of these will probably get past, or the explicit ones would get past Xboxes. But I mean, you've got character creation nowadays in most games, and everything from having a female style body with a male voice to having a choice of who to have a relationship with RPGs with. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is the best one. You can create pretty much anybody you want, and then you have a relationship with a character who might see you as male, female, or whatever, and you can have a relationship with whoever appropriately sees you as attractive. And that I mean, 30 years ago, they were worried about Night Trap, and yet we have pretty much the opportunity to do whatever you want nowadays. And it is as we see with Come on Bus and the other ones that you've looked at. Yeah, it's anything's possible nowadays.
There is actually a gaming I suppose you call it a gaming club. I think it's in Amsterdam or somewhere near Amsterdam, and it has sex rooms and things in there, and you can do partner swapping, and you can both go in and play with. I'm going to say this. It sounds like a pun, but it's not the case. You can play with each other's joysticks, but yeah. So
hang on. Do you mean like that you can literally partner swap as in go and have sex with somebody, or literally just go and play multiplayer with
you can go and play video games, and the idea being is you'll meet other people that are willing to have sex within this venue, and
just wife swapping for geeks.
Yeah, basically. So I have a friend that's a furry, and he dresses up as a tiger, and they actually play video games as part of their flirtatious. Well, he does anyway. He's flirting as part of his furry thing.
Well, obviously, there's a kink for anything really, but I don't. Yeah, that's one that I'm just like, really.
Yeah, not my bag. You know.
Not my bag either.
No.
But yeah,
Martin, what about you? Are you a furry?
I'm not a furry. No.
If you were to be a furry, what would your character be? What would you be?
What animal would you be?
You can be anything.
Red panda. Oh God, I said that a bit too easily.
No. Does it have to have fur?
Yes.
Generally,
because you dress up in a mascot outfit.
I was going to say a slug.
A slug.
Least attractive.
Slime or whatever.
I suppose the slime has its uses.
Fox, fox maybe.
Just
a
have
fox. A sly fox.
Have a thing of a lube just on your belly or something, just squirts out.
People know if I've left a room, haven't they?
Oh, dear.
Yeah, well, there's other ways how you can have that kind of slime, but yeah, we won't go into that.
So there's been a lot of there's been a lot of controversy on things like Twitch and streaming platforms where you see some of these gamer girls that get caught out pleasuring themselves while gaming and Fortnite and stuff like that, and they forget they're on camera.
I was going to say I've seen one of those before. There was one, but then there are others who, in inverted commas, forget. It's like, it gets you an extra 100,000 viewers because you're having your own. It's I don't know. Again, I'm somebody who I don't even particularly want to go to a strip club because I'm like, what's the point? If I can't touch, what's the point?
And if you did touch, your missus would kill you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If I didn't have even if I didn't have a wife, a strip club is not. Well, yeah, I'm not. Nah.
Can you imagine in the 80s, you go to a strip club and they've got all these Amstrad and Spectrums all lined up and go, put your coin in and enjoy your little pixelated screen.
just this, like 20 pixel woman comes in front of you, like, where's the boobs?
Yeah. No, that's her big toe, sir.
But what do you think to some of the controversies over the years? Things like Grand Theft Auto, the hot coffee. Did you have the action replay and unlock it?
I had it. I didn't unlock it, but I am aware of it.
Again, I mean, if you watch it now, it's awful in terms of the fact that it made it's so controversial. I mean, obviously the problem was that it was rated a different rating in the US, which meant that minors could buy it, and that they hadn't disclosed that was in there. And they hadn't disclosed it because they thought they'd disabled it. But then action replay codes or Game Shark codes, I don't know, one of the two, meant that it got unlocked. But then it blew up into this big. I mean, it was in the American senators and whatnot were all having to go at people about it and all this kind of thing. It was the usual.
Well, they were tapping in the code at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you watched it, all it was CJ, the main character. You went into a room and there wasn't any change in textures or anything, but you could have a virtual blowjob or virtual sex, and they weren't even undressed, and so there was no boobs, there was no nudity, and it was just 2 3D, and by nowadays standards, poorly 3D, textured and assembled bodies having sex or sexual pleasure, and it was so tame. And it was even tame by the. I remember being, obviously I was an adult when that happened, but it was even tame by those day standards, and it was just the usual. It was similar to Night Trap, where there was no need. If they'd just gone, well, that's a bit naughty. You should have made sure that was not accessible by any means, and they could have quietly gone, okay, any future ones that we reveal. We release will not have that stuff in it, and it wouldn't have been in the news. No one would have cared, and it would have disappeared. But now you've still got people nowadays on YouTube and whatnot unlocking the hot coffee in various emulation versions and whatnot, because it was a big thing and it gets views. So yay, views.
I was just checking to see if there was any Laserdisc adult games, but there actually strangely wasn't, which surprises me.
What?
Yeah.
So, have you two played Baldur's Gate 3?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So, in that kind of game where you create your own character and similar to Mass Effect kind of thing, where you can create your own character and then have sex with characters. Do you create a male or do you create a female?
Usually, I even thought about it
myself.
You usually do yourself, make yourself.
Yeah.
So I normally have two characters. I'll normally have a male and female when it makes a difference to stories, cutscenes, and whatnot. And yeah. But I mean, things like Mass Effect and Baldur's Gate, you can have a male that could be with a male and female, a male that could be with female. So, yeah, you could decide generally what you do. Whoever pays me attention normally is the first character that I'm like, yeah, sexy time with you. So, it doesn't really bother me one way or the other.
That was you the other night, was it then?
in games. But no, in Mass Effect, it's generally you'll have somebody going, oh, flirt a little bit with you, and you'll be like, oh, quick, flirt back. So yeah, I'm not that fussed. There are some bad, really, really bad ones. I mean, there are things probably worse, getting worse. Things like who is now Elliot Page. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. When Beyond Two Souls was out, somebody did a camera hack so that they could have a free roaming camera. And when the character, I can't remember the character's name, but when the character is having a shower, you don't see anything. It's not an 18 rated game. I think it was a 12 rated game in the UK. So sort of equivalent to PG 13 in America. I don't know whether it's legally binding in America, but in the UK it's legally binding when it's got a 12 or a 15. But there was a free camera that somebody developed, and when they looked at the shower scene, the character had a fully textured, modelled female body that Elliot Page had not posed for, and so there's a big. That was completely unnecessary. As far as I'm concerned, it's number one. It's quite realistic. If you play Beyond Two Souls, it's obviously all facially modelled with, those headsets that get exactly what they look at. But yeah, so it's basically like, could you imagine you're, going for a bit of acting and you've got your face modelled and you're like, yeah, great, excellent, and then they stick you basically in a porn film and go,
That's not bad, isn't it? It's not good at all.
Yes, it's not good. So it's definitely the worst side of these kind of games, because one thing that did come up a couple of times when I was researching all this subject was a game called, well, probably shouldn't say, but basically it was a game where you control a sexual pervert who rapes, and you control the rape of a 17-year-old, a 12-year-old, and their mum.
That's disgusting.
And that was the game. Now, the game, people
I don't think we should mention the title of this game.
Yeah, I didn't say the title of the game. No. And the title of the game apparently was warranted because the protagonist, who you control, dies at the end no matter what. If somebody's bought that, I think that's the kind of one where they need to be sort of, oh, you bought that game. Okay, we're going to be coming around and checking your computer.
And arresting you.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, in this country, in the UK, it is illegal to have a digital representation in any form of child pornography. And that is child pornography.
Yeah.
So this was a Japanese game. And I think Japan is slowly, very slowly coming around to changing their laws. But this is the country, isn't it, where they had to use panties in vending machines. So not happening very quickly. But yeah, so games like that, yeah, and there are probably more. I mean, there was all sorts of. There was a game that I looked up and was some kind of far right game where, again, I think you could sexually assault and kill various people of minorities. That was the game that was. It was like, why? Why would you do that?
Dark side of gaming, definitely.
It's the darker side of gaming, and that's the it's the kind of people that not only give humanity a bad name, but they give gamers a bad name. Fortunately, I think most of these games have been sort of wiped from existence and only existed in, passing on from one person to another kind of thing. But some of them have been released on, in shops, sometimes only for a short time.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get back to sexy time. I own House Party. That's quite a funny game, but even that one, just
there was a hack on The Sims, wasn't there, where you could have sex and.
Well, you have Woohoo. You have Woohoo in The Sims.
You just see them under the blanket, don't you? Moving around.
It was unlockable, wasn't it? So you saw everything.
Well, it blurs it out. It pixelates it. It pixelates the pixels. And there was a hack which basically got rid of the pixelization of things like going to the toilet, having a shower, and Woohoo. And all it was an untextured model just sitting there or lying. And so it again, not sexy time. If you're fapping to that, just find porn. It's so easy to find. And even porn, I mean, porn's not realistic, but still, it's a lot better than a lot of the stuff you get in games. I mean, there are sex games. If you go, if you look in the right places, there are games there where you can control having sex.
No one's watching porn, are they? Thinking this isn't realistic. I can't get into this. I can see you can get out of that washing machine if you really wanted to. I don't think you're really stuck.
Hang on. I don't think that's his stepmom.
When
would this scenario would never happen?
I'm going to write a strongly worded letter about this scenario.
Dear sir, I feel that your story was completely unnatural.
Please make more effort next time.
Yes.
Cool.
At least put a step aunt or something.
I don't think that would be a conversation that would happen in a taxi. To lead those events.
Has Has that taxi driver got the knowledge? I don't think so. She didn't know where Dagenham was.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've fully gone through sex and gaming, and we've also established that Duncan knows a hell of a lot about it in 20 minutes of research. So,
yeah. I think if one thing we could take from this is if you want sexy time and you want to get your rocks off, don't play video games for it. That's it.
Buy a fembot.
yeah. Just watch some porn. And if you really have a fetish that is, you'll probably find a game for it, but just use your imagination. It's probably better.
Unless, of course, your imagination involves Paddington Bear. Then don't.
Oh, trust me. You go on Pornhub or something, there's probably a Paddington Bear. Anime of some kind.
Go on, Google it, mine.
Watch him every morning. It'd be horrible, that.
Yeah. Daddy, why are you Googling Paddington Bear?
Let me just have a look at what Daddy's been looking at. Oh, Daddy, what is Paddington doing?
Why is he strangling that woman with his blue jacket?
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't get sued by Paddington Bear now.
Yeah.
Well, if we find any, we will report it to the Paddington.
We will, and post a link on our Facebook group.
And say, look what I found. You should really get rid of this. But it's I don't know. Games just they're not sexy. No. Yes, titillating, I think, is probably the best description. But yeah, no. I've never actually been. I've been titillated, but I've never been sexually aroused by a video game. I think I'll quite happily say that. And I own a few. I don't know how I own Lust from Beyond, which is some weird horror. I think it's a horror sex game on Steam. I don't know how I own it. I certainly didn't buy it, but I own it, apparently. I think it must have been like a freebie when I bought like a random key thing.
I remember everyone going nuts about the character in Tekken with the boobs. I can't remember what the character's name was, but she always had a crop top and the boobs hanging out.
There was a few.
Pacey, wasn't it, or something?
Oh, I don't know about that one. But yeah, I mean, there's been Dead or Alive was a fighting game originally, not just volleyball. And you had bouncing boobs physics. You could turn bouncing boob physics up or off. And literally, that was their selling point of, I think it was something like Dead or Alive 3, that it had bouncing boob physics, and you could like adjust the level of how much they bounced. So whether they were flapping around like some unnatural thing, or whether they were like fake boobs, not great.
Some people are just in need, shall we say, of that. I think it was Chrissy Montero was the big character on all the gaming magazines were going on about back in the day.
Christy Montero. Oh, blimey, yeah. She's got like just straps over her boobs, more or less.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, well, it's very typical of, all the RPGs. If you go back 20 years, all the RPGs were all men in big armor saving big-boobed maidens kind of thing. And then they thought they were being all equality by having heroes. You could have a male or a female, but the female heroes would be big-boobed, scantily clad women. And it's only nowadays with the fact that you can have male, female, you can choose everything. You can have how big their dick is, how big their boobs are. You can have boobs and a dick, all sorts. You can pretty much customize a character without locks nowadays in games like Baldur's Gate 3.
I haven't got the attention span to even be bothered to put clothes on my character, let alone adjust the size of things. So
Cyberpunk 2077, you can adjust the size of boobs and dicks.
Get that downloaded.
Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077, very good game, and you can have sex with quite a few of the characters. Yep. So yeah, again, not sexy though. It's just a bit weird in first person.
On that note, I need a cold glass of water.
You need a cold shower.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that we've
just to rid myself of this memory.
We've made people feel sexy with our sexy time and some not quite so sexy time. Yeah.
Martin, are you feeling sexy right now? You're very quiet.
Yeah, I'm just contemplating.
He's contemplating having sex on a bus.
As a fox.
Yeah.
Sex on a bus as a fox.
Or a slug.
Or a slug.
Or a slug. Or a combo. A slithering, dribbling fox.
A slimy fox on a bus.
Yeah. Sounds like Basil Brush. God.
Bum bum.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh dear.
On that note,
that's yeah.
Like and subscribe if you want to hear more delightful things like this.
And next week, what are we talking about? We're talking about Simpsons games. And,
I think it's Simpsons games.
Yeah. And top 5 games on all systems, including VR.
Ooh. I think, to be honest, lots of Simpsons games. But we'll talk about that next week. Yeah. In episode 55. So
yeah.
You did.
Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe, leave a review, and we will see you for episode 55.
Goodbye. Behave yourselves.